because I didn't want to fight all the time. And I remember hearing, pick your battle. So that was what I thought I was doing. But really, I was just storing it all up as ammunition. And then the chance arose, I let all of it out at one time. It wasn't like I was just going to fight about just that one thing. I was going to fight about all of it eventually. And then it wasn't one little thing, it was 10 things all rolled up into one. So it was awful. And
I wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, feeling thankful for the love and the happiness we chase. Sun is shining brightly, sky so blue and clear. With every
this year, my husband and I will have been married for 43 years. But we were together for almost two before we got married. So we've been together for 45 years. That's a long time. My parents, well, it was my mom's. We're not going to talk about that. Never mind. Yeah, 45 years. That's a long time to be with the same partner. And I was thinking about how things have changed so much in our relationship from when we were young till now. Just the dynamics. When you're a young couple and you're married, um, you have kids, you buy a home, you start building your life together. So there's a lot of stressful things happening. Raising a family is stressful, and the financial aspect of buying a home and planning for your future and all that. And so you have these constant stressors, and just being a young couple and learning how to be adults together and how to do all these things, because we were teenagers when we got together. We grew up together. And I remember hearing that all we know about relationships are what we see growing up, and usually that's our parents. So we enter into our relationship and we just assume these roles that we think we're supposed to. I just thought, my mom was a wife, and that was what I knew wives were supposed to be like. So I just assumed that role. I behaved like my mom, and my husband, he took on the same role as his father. And we clashed. And now that I think about it, my mom would have never been married to his dad. They were so different. But anyway, these were the roles that we assigned ourselves, I guess. And we ended up going through marriage counseling when we were young. And they're the ones that told us this. They're like, your marriage is your marriage. It's a very individual thing. And you decide what you want from your marriage and how it's going to be and what you expect from your partner. Don't just behave like you think you're supposed to. Talk to each other, find out what does this person need? What do you need? You're supposed to be open and communicate. Communication is key. But neither one of us came from that type of family where we were very good at communicating. I came from the family that just we bottled it up because we didn't believe in confrontation. So rather than upset your partner, just hold it in, just stuff it down, until you get so much in there, and then it just explodes, and then you're just done. I talked about this in a previous video, and that was what I knew about communicating. And then my husband, he was a yeller because that's what his dad did. His dad was always upset and yelling about something. And so that's the way he was. That's how he handled it. And like I said, we ended up going through marriage counseling, and we learned, how to approach things differently, how to talk about things as they came up, instead of having a fight about something and you've got all these other things that you're mad about because you've held on to all of them. You haven't let any of them go. So now you may be fighting about this one thing, but you throw in all this other stuff. You're mad about this and that, and they can't even figure out how to correct this issue because you're throwing all these other issues at them. And that was how we fought, instead of just addressing this one issue at this time as it comes up, resolving it, and then when the next thing comes up. But it would be like there would constantly be stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like maybe every 10 times we would confront each other. It's like we'd let things build up, and then on that 10th time, then we'd let it all come out, because I didn't want to fight all the time. And I remember hearing, pick your battle. So that was what I thought I was doing. But really, I was just storing it all up as ammunition. And then the chance arose, I let all of it out at one time. It wasn't like I was just going to fight about just that one thing. I was going to fight about all of it eventually. And then it wasn't one little thing, it was 10 things all rolled up into one. So it was awful. And we went through years behaving that way. And so, yeah, when we were younger, marriage was a lot different. And because, we had all these stressors of raising a family and paying bills and learning how to be adults, it was just a constant thing. Sure, there was good times, and we loved each other and we had fun and we did things, but there was always that overlying factor of raising your family and worrying about finances. That was a constant. And eventually, the kids get raised, and you buy your home and you pay your bills, and you've learned how to become an adult, and life just is calmer and a little bit easier. And so now you don't have these stressors hanging over you, and you're not constantly focused on that. So now you can actually enjoy each other more. And even though things aren't as heated, as passionate as they once were, the love is actually stronger now. It's just more, you actually start caring about the other person as a human being. They're your family, and you worry about them. Whereas when you're younger, it was more about how they treated you, and how they affected your life. And if they upset you, you're like, I don't need this. I'm out of here, or whatever. But now that I'm older, I don't just see him as the father of my children. He's a friend. He's my family, and I care about him. And even when he does things that maybe might upset me or whatever, I don't take it as personal. For some reason, we take all this stuff so personal when we're newlyweds, or when we're young married couples. And now those things seem trivial, but we can sit back and appreciate what we've created, the life we've created. We can, laugh about our family when we watch our kids interacting with their kids, and we see them dealing with the same things that we dealt with. And they're like, Mom, Dad, how did you guys deal with this? I can't believe, was I ever like this? And we're like, yeah, we're just like that. And so we just sit back and we watch how they handle it. And hopefully we gave them the right tools, because we were just learning ourselves. But so we get a kick out of that, watching our kids interact with their kids, and seeing what we created, these human beings, and watching them live their lives. So we share that. Nobody else is going to understand them like we do. So we can laugh about their little idiosyncrasies, and nobody's going to love them like I know my husband loves them as much as I do, and cares about them. And then, the life that we created, this is, our home. This is what's important to us. And even though we don't have absolutely everything in common, like he watches different shows than I watch, and he likes, maybe some different music. We share a lot of the same music, but there's something he listens to a little more heavier rock or hard rock than I do. I listen to more mellow stuff, and we do things a little bit different. Even the foods, our diets are different, and it's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't have to do everything the same. We're not joined at the hip. And that's what makes it more interesting, I think, is because we each have, some separateness. He has his work, and I do my things, and and then when we get together, we can talk about these things. It's, because I know some couples that are with each other day in and day out, and they're fine with that. But I think we would probably kill each other if we were with each other day in and day out. Having time apart makes us appreciate each other more, and we find each other more interesting. But we also, like I said, we're genuinely concerned for the other person's well-being, and I want what's best for him and vice versa. um, I had recently talked about in a video how if I should pass away at this age, I would honestly want him to remarry because I want him to have some quality of life. I don't want his life to end just because mine did. I would want him, if what if he had another 20, 30 years? I would want him to, go and do all the things that we had planned on doing and still, be with the kids and the grandkids and all that. And that's the kind of love, you get for your partner when you've been together this long at this point in time. But, there's little things that will always annoy you, but that's with anybody. There isn't anybody that doesn't do something that, I might find annoying in some way, but you deal with it because you're annoying. I know I have, believe it or not, qualities that rub him the wrong way, and we can tease each other about it now. But it's that feeling of being completely comfortable around another person. So, yeah, when you've been with a person for as long as I've been with my husband, you have this shared history. You've gone through so many experiences together. We both have dealt with the loss of our parents. We both have lost a sibling. We've been through job losses, physical illnesses. My husband had a heart attack. And we were there for each other. We help each other through these times. And through these experiences, your bond gets even stronger. And not just, raising our kids, which we've done together, and building our home, but building our lives and becoming the people that we were meant to be. Because like I said, we were just teenagers. We were just babies. And it was through being together that we encouraged each other to be the best person they could be. And we worked towards that. And now we're both better versions of ourselves than when we were first together. So if anything, your love for that person is stronger because you've watched them become this person that they are now, and you have a deeper connection with them. And the communication is better. It's more open. I think I was afraid to be totally open because I didn't know what he was going to think. And it was just out of fear, a fear of being rejected, I guess. And through the years of opening up and sharing these things, and he's still here, it's obvious now that he's not leaving because of something that I did or that I thought that he might find disappointing or whatever, and vice versa. If he did anything wrong, he can share that with me, and I'm still going to love him regardless, unless he did something really terrible, But for the most part, we're always going to be there for each other, and because I know ultimately he's a genuinely good person, as he knows I am too. So anything that he does, I know it's going to be something that he's going to grow from. He's going to learn from his mistakes and just grow from it, and that's what happens, And we can talk about our childhoods together, and we compare notes, and I know why he is the way he is. He knows why I am the way I am, and we accept each other, like I said, with all our faults. Whereas when we were younger, we kind of used it against each other. When we would get upset with each other, well, you did this and you did that, and it just changes. Like I said, it just changes. You don't fight about those things. And now we spend more time talking about doing fun things and our plans for the future, and shared experiences. And it's that comfort of knowing that somebody's going to be there for you if something happened, because I know my kids would be there for us, but they have their own lives and they can only give so much time, whereas with your partner, we are each other's lives. And if anything happens to him, he knows I'm going to be there for him 100% and vice versa. And it's a sense of security that when you're young, you don't have that. You marry each other for better, for worse, and sickness and health. But if they were to get sick right away after, just getting married, chances are you're not going to want to be around. But now that we've gotten 45 years together under our belt, neither one of us are going to go anywhere. The other person would have to do something really awful, and it's nice knowing that. It's the comfort of knowing that somebody's got your back always, and that somebody sees you with all your flaws and all your imperfections, and they're still here. They're not going anywhere. He's seen me at my absolute worst, and I've seen him at his absolute worst. And if anything, we can laugh about it. We tease each other, and we both talk openly about aging, because we're both, seeing it happen within ourselves, and we're like, oh my God, look at my skin, it's getting all crepey, and and he's like, I got this crease in my face. It's like, where'd this come from? And we can talk about that stuff and laugh about it, and point out our flaws without fear of the other person going, oh, you do, ooh. Now I look at it, it's like, I can top that. But that's okay. It makes aging a lot less scary too when you have somebody to share it with. We laugh at other old people because we realize we're them, and we can see the silliness in things. We don't get upset about things that we did because you don't have the same ego. It's like your partner is not your opponent, they're your teammate. You're working together to build this life together, and your perspective changes, and you create space for each other. And instead of expecting them to do all the compromising and all the bending, like when you're first together, you feel like everything that's wrong in your relationship is their fault because you're fine the way you are, you're comfortable with yourself, and if you have any issues, it's from them. But then as we get older, we realize that we both have flaws, and we work together because we want to create this unity. We want a partner for life. This is what we wanted. Not everybody does. Some people are perfectly fine with being single, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we both wanted a partner. We wanted somebody to share our lives with and to be there for us. And so it's give and take. You have to put in some work, but you get what you put into it. How's that? And I feel like we both have worked really hard to make this the relationship that it is today, where we're both comfortable with it, and we're freer to share these things and talk about things that we weren't comfortable sharing with each other in the beginning. Like I said, we just don't sweat the small stuff anymore. So yeah. And I did a video on this not too long ago about sleeping in separate rooms. There was a time when that would have been a reason for divorce. Sleeping in a separate bedroom, that was absolutely unheard of. How I couldn't even imagine us getting to that point. It's like, what is wrong with people? How could you sleep in separate rooms? Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in our 60s, and we sleep in separate rooms. Not all the time. We have a guest room and a craft room with a bed in it, but a lot of the time I have no problem, falling asleep in the guest room. And the reason is simple, is, he snores, I snore, he has restless leg syndrome, he gets up way earlier than I do, I go to bed way later than him, I like to sit up on the computer, the light bothers him, even if I wear headphones, it's still annoying because he sleeps on his side facing me, and So rather than deal with that, it's easier to just go and to sleep in the guest room or whatever. And neither one of us are offended by it. It's just it's a routine. We want sleep has become important to us. We like a good night's sleep. So it doesn't bother me a bit. He wants the temperature cooler or warmer in the bedroom than I do. He wants the fan on when I don't, just things like that. And so it's like, why not? We've got plenty of rooms. Why not? Why, who says that, in order to have a good marriage, you have to, sleep in the same bed. Like I said, when we were younger, we didn't have a choice. We didn't have 5 bedrooms. We had 3 kids and they each had their own room, and then we had the master bedroom. It's just so much easier now than it was. And I would have never thought that. I always thought, it was that passion that you have when you're young, that's what keeps your marriage going. And even though that, I don't want to use the wrong word, it doesn't necessarily fade. You still have strong feelings for each other, but it's not the overriding emotion in your marriage. Um, you become more comfortable with each other. I know there was a time when we were very first together, I didn't even want him to see me unless, my hair was done and my makeup was on first thing in the morning. Even, I was uncomfortable. I was always making sure I was presentable. I'd go in the bathroom first thing in the morning, brush my hair, all that stuff, brush my teeth. I don't do that anymore. He might even wish I did. I don't know. I can go for days without doing that. Like when I was sick, when I was younger, I would still try to look presentable. I don't do that anymore. And by the same token, he's the same way, and I think we used to do things more for the other person. Now we do things that we like, and that's okay. I don't want him to do anything specifically for me. Dress how you want to dress. If you want to have a mustache, if you want to have a goatee, if you want to cut your hair, that's up to him. But I know when we were younger, I was like, I wouldn't cut my hair because he liked longer hair. But then years ago, about 10, 15 years ago, I cut all my hair off, but I was having issues. My hair was thinning, and I just cut it super short. It was a bit shocking to him when it happened, but he wasn't upset. It wasn't like, oh my God, what did you do? It was kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw King of Queens, when Carrie went in and got her hair cut. Reminded me of that. But anyway, yeah, you do things like that. You worry about, your partner's opinion. But as you get older, you realize that kind of stuff doesn't really matter. I'm going to love him whether he has a goatee, a mustache, a clean shaven face, whatever. That stuff doesn't make any difference to me at this point. Um, I think it's better. It's better. And when you've been with somebody for that long, you can't help but build a bond with them and get closer and just care more. Your feelings are deeper now. Like I said, it's not the same as it was when you were first together, but it's actually better. I would hope that my kids could have that with their spouse someday. I hope that they're with somebody long enough to understand that, to feel that kind of love for another person that can only come from being together for so many years and evolving and growing with somebody. It's a pretty cool thing. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. And yeah, let me know about you. Have you been married long? What do you think? Has it gotten better? Um, do you look forward to aging with this person? Because I can't imagine getting older with anybody else. Nobody else is going to understand me or appreciate my idiosyncrasies like my husband. So, yeah, let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.